war is usually loud. It is the deafening roar of artillery, barrages shaking the earth, the scream of Stuka dive bombers falling from the sky, the mechanical rattle of MG-42s, tearing through the air at 1,200 rounds per minute. War is noise, is chaos. War is 1,000 men screaming at once. But for one specific type of soldier, war is silent. It is slow. It is personal. Through the glass of a telescopic sight, 4 times magnification, this soldier doesn't see a faceless enemy uniform. He sees a man. He sees the stubble on his chin, the mud on his boots. He sees him laughing at a joke his buddy just told. He sees him pulling out a letter from home, maybe from his wife, maybe from his mother. The sniper watches. He waits. He controls his breathing, slows his heartbeat, feels the wind on his face, calculates distance, elevation, humidity. His finger rests on the trigger. Light pressure, 2 pounds, 3 pounds. His heart beats once, twice, snap. The light goes out. In World War II, no soldier was more feared or more intensely hated than the sniper. They were the ghosts of the battlefield. They struck from nowhere and vanished into nothing. They killed with precision, with patience, with cold calculation. But there is a dark side to this skill that history often glosses over. Why were snipers executed on sight if captured? Why did infantrymen on all sides consider killing a sniper not murder, but justice? And what does it do to a human mind to hunt another human being like an animal? Today, we are looking through the scope. We are analyzing the psychology of the sniper, and we are asking a question that makes us uncomfortable. When does a soldier become an assassin? First, we need to understand what we're talking about. There is a crucial difference between a marksman and a sniper. A marksman is a soldier in a rifle squad who happens to be a good shot. He's got a steady hand, good eyes. He can hit targets at distance, but he fights alongside his buddies. He's part of the unit, a part of the team. A sniper is something else entirely. A sniper is a hunter. In World War II, this role evolved from a useful specialty into a terrifying science. On the Eastern Front, in the frozen ruins of Stalingrad, the Soviets and the Germans engaged in what they called rat war, an industrial duel of patience. Snipers on both sides, hunting each other through the rubble, sometimes for days, awaiting for a single mistake, a moment of exposure, a shadow that moved wrong. In the Pacific Theater, Japanese snipers tied themselves into the tops of palm trees with rope. They knew they would never climb down. They would stay there until they were killed or until they died of thirst. Their job was to kill as many Americans as possible before the inevitable end. In Normandy, after D-Day, the bocage, the ancient hedgerows of France, turned every field into a maze, into a killing ground. The German snipers could hide in the thick vegetation and pick off American soldiers one by one. An entire platoon could be pinned down by a single man with a rifle. The tools of the trade were specialized, carefully chosen. The German Karabiner 98 Kurz with a Zeiss scope, crystal clear optics. The Soviet Mosin, Nagant with a PE scope, crude but effective. The American Springfield, the British Lee Enfield. But the most dangerous weapon wasn't the rifle. It was the psychology. A single sniper could pin down an entire company, 150 men, frozen, unable to move, because movement meant death, and no one knew where the shot would come from. The sniper was what military strategists call a force multiplier. One man doing the work of 50. But as we are about to see, the price of that effectiveness was the absolute hatred of every other man on the battlefield. Let's get into the head of the hunter. What does it actually take to do this job? The primary requirement isn't marksmanship. Any decent soldier can be taught to shoot accurately. The primary requirement is something much harder to teach: a complete suppression of the human instinct to move. Consider Simo Häyhä, a Finnish farmer, 5 foot 3 inches tall, quiet, unassuming. During the Winter War of 1939, when the Soviet Union invaded Finland, this small man became the most lethal sniper in history. The Soviets called him the White Death. He is credited with over 500 confirmed kills. In less than 100 days, Häyhä operated in temperatures that dropped to 40 degrees below zero, and he developed techniques that seem almost superhuman. He would pack hard snow into his mouth to prevent his breath from steaming in the freezing air, because a puff of steam would give away his position. He would pour water on the snow in front of his rifle barrel so that when he fired, the muzzle blast wouldn't kick up a cloud of snow. He would bury himself in snowdrifts and become invisible. He became a statue. This requires a terrifying level of physical control. Snipers would lie in the same position for 12 hours, 14 hours, sometimes 24 hours straight. They couldn't move to stretch cramping muscles. They couldn't move to eat or drink. And this is the gritty reality that movies almost never show. They couldn't move to use the bathroom. If nature called, you went in your pants. You lay in your own filth, in your own waste, for hours, sometimes for an entire day, because if you moved, you died. One American sniper in the Pacific, interviewed after the war, described it like this: you stop being human. You become part of the ground, part of the tree. You don't think about your body anymore. You don't feel the pain. You don't feel the insects crawling on you. You just watch and wait. Psychologically, this creates a strange detachment from reality. Snipers often describe something called the God complex. When you view the world through a 4-power magnification scope, you are no longer a participant in the battle. You are an observer. You are separate. Above, you hold the power of life and death in your index finger. You aren't fighting for your life in a chaotic, close quarters brawl. You aren't reacting in panic or fear. You are calmly, coldly, methodically deciding when another man's life ends. You watch him, you study him, you learn his patterns, and then, when the moment is right, you erase him. That detachment is psychologically necessary for the sniper to function. But for the men on the receiving end, it was unforgivable. Now let's flip the perspective. Let's go downrange. Let's be the target. For the average infantryman, the sniper created a specific type of psychological terror. In the jungles of the Pacific, they called it the green fear. In Europe, it was called sniper paralysis. It changed the way entire armies behaved. In 1944, if you watched a U.S. Army unit moving through France, you would notice something strange. No one saluted officers. Officers removed the rank insignia from their helmets. They took the bars off their shoulders. They tried to look exactly like every other soldier. Why? Because snipers were trained to decapitate the snake. You kill the leader first. Then you kill the radio operator because he's calling for support. Then you kill the medic because he's trying to save lives. If you stood out in any way, you died. Officers learned to walk in the middle of formations instead of at the front. Radio operators disguised their equipment. Medics removed the red crosses from their helmets because those crosses had become targets instead of protection. The presence of a single sniper could paralyze an entire advance, not because of the casualties he inflicted. Those were often minimal, but because of the fear, the uncertainty, the knowledge that any step could be your last. But the hatred, the true visceral hatred that infantrymen felt for snipers, came from a specific tactic. It's called baiting. If a machine gunner shoots you, he's trying to kill you. It's impersonal. It's war. It's business. But a sniper, a skilled sniper, might intentionally shoot a soldier in the stomach, or through the leg, or in the pelvis. A painful, debilitating, but non-fatal wound. Why would he do this? Why not just kill the man? Because a wounded man screams. A wounded man calls for help. He cries out for his mother. He begs for water. He begs for God. And his buddies hear him. A human instinct is powerful. When you hear your friend screaming in pain, every fiber of your being wants to help him. You want to run out and drag him to safety. You want to stop his bleeding. The medic hears the screaming. His training kicks in. His duty kicks in. He grabs his bag and runs toward the wounded man. Snap. Now the medic is dead, shot through the head, and the first man is still screaming. Maybe another soldier tries. Maybe he thinks he can be faster. Maybe he thinks he can zigzag. Maybe he just can't stand listening to his friend die. He runs out. Snap. And now there are two bodies, and one man still screaming. The sniper uses the wounded man as live bait, as a lure, to stack up bodies. It is tactically brilliant. It is logically sound. It is a force multiplier in its purest form. But to the infantryman pinned down, listening to his friend scream for hours, watching him bleed out slowly, unable to help, It is evil. It is seen as a violation of the unwritten rules of warfare, a violation of human decency. Even in war, there are supposed to be lines you don't cross. The sniper crossed them all. Let me tell you about a specific incident. Italy, in 1944. An American rifle company is advancing through a valley. They're taking sniper fire from the hills, not heavy fire. Just one shot, then silence, then another shot, then silence. Over the course of 6 hours, the sniper kills 3 men, wounds 4 more. The entire company, 140 men, is pinned down. They can't advance. They can't retreat without exposing themselves. They just have to wait. One of the wounded men is gut shot. He's lying in the open, screaming, begging for help. Everyone can hear him. His best friend is lying 10 feet away behind a rock. He can hear every word. Quevry. The company commander calls for artillery support. They bracket the hill where they think the sniper is hiding. They pour in dozens of shells. And then, silence. They think they got him. The advance continues. And as they move up the hill, they find him, a German soldier, maybe 20 years old. His sniper rifle is lying next to him. He's wounded, shrapnel in his leg. He's trying to surrender. The company commander orders his men to take him prisoner, to follow the rules, to follow the Geneva Convention. But before the order can be carried out, the best friend of the gut shot soldier walks up. He's still hearing his friend's screams in his head. He raises his rifle. The German soldier starts begging, in broken English, "Please, no, I surrender." The American shoots him in the face. The company commander writes in his report, "Enemy sniper killed in action." No charges are filed, because everyone understood there is a social contract in warfare. It's unwritten, but everyone knows it. If I surrender, you take me prisoner. You treat me according to the rules. But for snipers, that contract was void. We have records from all sides. American, German, Soviet, British, Japanese. Stories of snipers being executed immediately upon capture. There's a quote from a World War II infantry veteran that sums it up perfectly, Zevin. If you kill a man with a bayonet, face to face, you're a hero. If you kill him with a rifle scope from 400 yards away, you're an assassin. Snipers knew this. They knew that if they were caught, they were dead. So many of them didn't carry any identification that listed their role. They tried to blend in as regular infantry. They would ditch their scoped rifles and grab a standard issue weapon, but usually it didn't work. Usually someone in the unit knew, or the scope was found nearby, or they just looked too calm, too detached, and usually they didn't make it to the POW camp. The walk back to headquarters was a long walk. Lots of opportunities for accidents, for attempted escapes, for a prisoner to be shot while trying to run. So what is the long-term psychological cost of this kind of warfare? For the snipers who survived the war, the mental toll was unique and severe. A machine gunner who fired at a tree line could tell himself he didn't know who he hit. Maybe he missed. Maybe he just suppressed the enemy. It was impersonal. A bomber pilot, dropping bombs from 20,000 feet, never saw the faces of the people below. They were just coordinates on a map, but the sniper knew. He saw the face. He saw the moment of impact. He saw the man fall. He saw the blood. He saw the friend run to help. He saw that friend fall too. The intimacy of the kill leaves a different kind of scar. Some snipers coped through complete dehumanization. They had to. It was the only way to function. Lyudmila Pavlichenko, Soviet sniper, the most successful female sniper in history, 309 confirmed kills. When asked how she could kill so many people, she said, "I don't kill men, I kill fascists. They aren't human to me. They're targets." She had to strip away their humanity entirely. It was the only way her mind could process what she was doing. But after the war, many snipers struggled. Higher rates of what we now call PTSD, higher rates of depression, substance abuse, suicide. Because unlike other soldiers, they couldn't claim it was impersonal. They couldn't claim they were just following orders in the heat of battle. They had time, they had calm, they had choice. And that knowledge eats at you. One American sniper from the Pacific Theater, interviewed in the 1980s, said this, "Every night, I see their faces, all of them. I remember the first one most clearly, a Japanese officer. I watched him for 3 hours before I took the shot. I watched him eat his lunch. I watched him smile. I watched him write a letter. And then I killed him. That was 50 years ago. And I still see his face every single night. Today, the role of the sniper has evolved. Modern military snipers are highly trained professionals. They're respected. They're vital for force protection, for intelligence gathering, for precision strikes that minimize collateral damage. The stigma has faded somewhat, but the core psychological reality remains the same. It is still the loneliest job in warfare. You are still separated from your unit. You are still making calculated decisions about life and death. You still see the face, and that intimate violence still leaves its mark. The psychology of sniping reveals the darkest truth about war. When you strip away all the machinery, all the technology, all the strategy and tactics, war is ultimately about one human being deciding to end the existence of another human being. Most of warfare hides that truth behind distance and chaos, behind the fog of battle, behind the excuse of, "I didn't have a choice." But the sniper can't hide behind any of that. The sniper represents that truth in its rawest, most uncomfortable form. No anger, no adrenaline, no chaos. Just a math equation, one speed, distance, elevation, heartbeat, and a choice. They were hated because they made the horror of war precise. They were feared because they were invisible. They killed without warning, without mercy, without ever being seen. And they were hunted because in the eyes of the infantrymen who had to face them, they had stopped being soldiers and had become something else entirely, executioners. That's our analysis of the sniper's war. If you found this deep dive into military psychology valuable, subscribe for more. We release new breakdowns every week. Here's my question for you, and I want you to be completely honest in the comments, the tactic of baiting. Wounding a man to kill the medic who comes to help him. Is that a legitimate tactic of war, or is it a war crime? Where do you personally draw the line? When does smart tactics become something darker? Let me know what you think. Next time, we're examining the logistics of D-Day. How do you feed, arm, and move 150,000 men across the English Channel? The math behind the invasion. Until then, stay low and keep your head down.